Mangwana Limwalelepo Fukenjani Klekwas, welcome to Africa Good Morning, your trusted weekday window into the continent's pulse. Today's show takes us from Abidjan to Luanda, starting with Ivory Coast President Alassane Ouattara's impending fourth-term decision, then zooming in on South Africa's call for restraint in the escalating Israel-Iran crisis. We examine the alarming rise in terrorism deaths across the Sahel and Shell's legal setback in the UK over pollution in Nigeria. Plus, we spotlight the return of two detained South Africans from Equatorial Guinea, unpack U.S. Africa trade shifts, and bring you the Zimbabwe report with Talent Gore. Watch us on DSTV 285, Core TV 25, 1up2.com, and NTV Africa on YouTube. My name is Ashwin Berry. Top stories shortly.
Slow internet should be a headache of the past, yet many Namibians have connections that just aren't fast. We have a solution that might set you free. It's called Mobile LTE, and it comes with real speed. You'll enjoy up to 50 megabytes per second from just $300 Namibian a month and free internet browsing after midnight till 6. When it comes to staying connected, this is it. Visit Paratus.Africa/Namibia or our branches nationwide and experience the thrill of better internet with Paratus by your side.
Always prepared, Paratus.
Let's get into our top stories on Africa Good Morning. Ivory Coast President Alassane Ouattara has told thousands of supporters in Abidjan that he will soon reveal whether he intends to run for a controversial fourth term in the country's October 25 election. This comes after the ruling rally of Hofo Mietes for Democracy and Peace Party officially nominated him as their candidate following rising political tension. A recent court decision excluded major opposition leaders, former President Laurent Gbagbo of the PPACI and Tijane Thiam of the PDCI, from the race, prompting both parties to unite in protest. Gbagbo was barred due to a criminal conviction, while Thiam was excluded over nationality issues. Ouattara's critics accuse him of authoritarian tendencies, but his supporters see him as a stabilizing force, citing his background as an IMF economist. The stakes are high in a country scarred by electoral violence, including the 2010 crisis that claimed 3,000 lives after a disputed outcome between Ouattara and Gbagbo. With tensions mounting and opposition leaders effectively sidelined, Ouattara's impending decision could ignite significant political consequences for Ivory Coast's fragile democracy. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has voiced grave concern over the Israel-Iran conflict, particularly following the United States' entry into the war through coordinated strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. Speaking after the attack, Ramaphosa urged the U.S., Israel, and Iran to allow the United Nations to intervene diplomatically, emphasizing the need for a peaceful resolution. His comments aligned with a broader international outcry as reactions to the U.S. strikes ranged from condemnation to deeper apprehension about further escalation. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session prompted by Iran, where UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed alarm at the growing conflict. Now, Guterres criticized Washington's use of force, calling the bombings a dangerous shift in an already volatile region, reiterating his appeal for de-escalation. He warned that continued military action would plunge the Middle East into another cycle of devastation. Meanwhile, Iran declared it would defend itself against aggression, heightening fears of broader regional conflict. Guterres concluded with a stark warning against spiraling retaliation, insisting that diplomacy must prevail to prevent further suffering across the region. There is an update on that story. Earlier this morning on his social media site, Truth Social, Donald Trump announced a ceasefire. We're yet to get details from Israel and Iran with regards to that. Now, moving on. The 2025 Global Terrorism Index, released by the Institute for Economics and Peace, reports that Africa's Sahel region accounted for 51% of global terrorism-related deaths last year, a rise from 48% the previous year. The region also experienced 19% of all terrorist attacks worldwide. Burkina Faso remains the epicenter, with over 700 deaths attributed to extremist groups like Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam and Muslimin. Niger recorded over 400 fatalities, with insurgents targeting civilians, military installations, and public events. Nigeria also saw devastating violence, including an attack in Mafa village, Yobe State, that reportedly killed between 100 and 150 people. The Lake Chad region witnessed deadly clashes between Islamic State West Africa province and Boko Haram, resulting in 80 deaths. In Mali, a major attack on Gendarmerie training school in Bamako left 60 soldiers dead, with responsibility claimed by Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wal Muslimin. According to the United Nations, the Sahel remains engulfed in persistent terrorist violence, with the death toll continuing to rise in 2025, raising serious regional and international security concerns. Moving on. The UK High Court has ruled that Shell plc and its former Nigerian subsidiary can be held legally accountable for decades of oil pollution that has devastated the Bill and Ogale communities in Nigeria's Niger Delta. This landmark decision, following a 4-week preliminary trial, opens the door for victims to pursue claims for oil spills dating back beyond 5 years, especially where cleanup has not been conducted. Shell had attempted to block the case using legal technicalities, but the court dismissed their arguments, affirming that ongoing pollution could represent continuous breaches of duty. The ruling also rejected Shell's claim that illegal oil bunkering absolves them of liability, stating that the company may be held responsible if it failed to safeguard its infrastructure or if employees were complicit. The court further confirmed that Shell plc, not just as its former Nigerian arm, can be held liable under UK law, while the judge declined to rule on constitutional violations under Nigerian law. She noted the pollution may breach the right to life. A full trial is set for 2027, potentially setting a major precedent for global environmental justice. And finally, the South African government has welcomed the release of Peter Shane Haksam and Frederick Potgieter, 2 nationals detained in Equatorial Guinea since February 9, 2023. The men had been sentenced to 12 years in prison but were freed following a presidential pardon granted by Equatorial Guinea's head of state. Their release comes after persistent diplomatic efforts by South Africa, which included special envoys and continuous appeals for clemency on humanitarian grounds. Now, the Department of International Relations and Cooperation expressed gratitude to Equatorial Guinea for considering the impact of the case on the families involved and for allowing consular access throughout this process. The successful outcome was also attributed to coordinated collaboration between the DIRCO and the detainees' families and their employer SBM Offshore. Government acknowledged the legal and diplomatic complexities of the matter and reaffirmed its commitment to strengthening bilateral relations with Equatorial Guinea. Minister Ronald Lamola welcomed the men home personally, underlining the importance of diplomatic dialogue and constructive engagement in resolving international legal and humanitarian issues. The return of Haksam and Potgieter marks the end of a difficult chapter for both their families and South African diplomacy. Those have been our top stories on Africa Good Morning. Shortly, we'll be joined by Talent Gore as she delivers the Zimbabwe report. But prior to that, it's the weather. All right, it's time for us to talk to Talent Gore as she delivers the Zimbabwe report. Talent Homkase.
Africa.
Tamuka Hedu. Now, President Emerson Mnangagwa made a surprise visit to Parenyatwa and Sali Mugabe hospitals. What were the reasons for that and, of course, the results?
Yes, President Emerson Mnangagwa made an announced visit to two major hospitals in Harare last week. After this was a month after Youth Minister Muda Machakairi urged him to go and see for himself how the state in which the hospitals are in. Mnangagwa's motorcade made its way through Harare without the usual sirens and blue lights as the security team maintained a low but vigilant profile. The president went on an unscheduled inspection of central hospitals in Harare to see the state of play of things in those vital referral institutions is the heart of health delivery and caregiving. Using a private motorcade, the president cut through bureaucracy and reached the real situation on the ground. It was not pretty at all. That is what the cabinet minister said. The spokesperson of the president said that what they saw when they went to the hospitals unannounced was not well at all. They saw dilapidated infrastructure. They saw machines which were not working, and the president also interacted with young doctors at the hospitals. The president said that he had seen it for himself and they were going to make major efforts to ensure that all hospitals are equipped with medicines and they have state-of-the-art infrastructure and everything was running smoothly. Also, soon after the visit, there are allegations rather that businessman Wikno Chivayo has been given a tender to supply all hospitals with cancer machines. Apparently, there was no tender process which was called for, but rather Wikno was picked up. One of his companies was picked to procure the machines and equip all hospitals with the cancer machines. And the tender is quite big. It amounts to nearly 500 million United States dollars. So the citizens in Zimbabwe, they are not happy with that. They are saying that how can he be given that tender? We don't know Wikno to be in the business of in the health delivery business. He doesn't know anything about cancer machines, so how come he was given the tender to procure and equip all those hospitals with the tender? And also the tender is quite expensive. It's about 400 million United States dollars, so citizens are not happy with that. So we're not really sure how the government itself is going to react to this, whether they're going to keep quiet or they're going to address this issue. We're not really sure, or they're just going to go ahead and give Wikno Chivayo the tender. But there has been an outcry over the level of corruption that is happening with that tender.
Thank you, Talent, for that update. Now, moving on to some positive news. Zimbabwe has scored a first in tobacco production. I know it's always been dangling between first and second, but it looks like this time first is clear.
Yes, the local tobacco industry has scored a first after reaching 300 million kilograms mark this season amid increased interest in the golden leaves production. In a statement, the Tobacco Industry and Marketing Board said the country had made global impact through tobacco production. This year's marketing season has been historic. As of 18 June 2025, Zimbabwe has sold over 300 million kilograms of tobacco, a new record. This was said by the Tobacco Industry and Marketing Board. Farmers have earned more than 1 billion United States dollars, another milestone worth celebrating. While this reflects resilience and hard work across the value chain, the ideal feature is not just about record volumes, it is about increased local processing, enhanced farmer earnings, and diversified markets and environmentally sustainable practices. The team said that we must shift from volume-driven horizontal growth to value-driven growth, Stakeholders have also applauded the historic figures that coincided with the appointment of Emmanuel Machaire as substantive chief executive officer of the Zimbabwe Tobacco Farmers and Growers Association.
Now, the recently returned former minister Walter Mzembe was sent to prison after a court revoked bail, and trial is to resume on the 1st of July, Talent.
Yes, former Foreign Minister Walter Mzembe has had his bail revoked by a Harare magistrate, and his corruption trial will resume on 1 July with him coming from prison. Mzembe was on trial for criminal abuse of office and theft of trust property in 2018 when he left the country. His lawyers said to seek medical attention. His lawyers said that he left the country for South Africa to seek medical attention. The 61-year-old did not return home until last week when he was arrested on 3 outstanding warrants for failing to attend trial. Harare Magistrate Donald Ndirowe heard that Mzembe's legal team, led by Kilian Mandiki, who argued that the former minister was being treated for cancer in South Africa. Mandiki said Mzembe had decided to return after his health improved, but the magistrate said that Mzembe was not so sick to an extent that he could not attend trial. The charges against Mzembe stem from the disposal of televisions worth $2 million United States dollars while he was tourism minister. The televisions bought for the 2010 FIFA World Cup fan parks were donated to Emmanuel Makandiwa's mega church in Chitungwiza by Mzembe, who was arrested after the ouster of the late former President Mugabe in 2017 in a 2017 military coup.
Now, in some really positive athletics news, Talent Makarau, Zimbabwe's own star and sprint king, blazed to NCAA glory.
In a moment of electric brilliance, Zimbabwe's Tapiwa Nashi Makarau shattered the 20.17 seconds national record at the NCAA Track and Field Championship in the United States of America last Friday. Racing against with elite talent, Makarau crossed the finish line in a jaw-dropping 19.84 seconds, earning not just a gold medal but a firm place in Zimbabwe's sporting history. The historic final held at Hayward Field, a cathedral of global athletics, saw 2 Zimbabweans dominate the podium. Makanaka Shicharamba, a fellow 2024 Olympic finalist, stormed into second place in 19.92 seconds, completing a Zimbabwe 1-2 finish. The 23-year-old Makarau, who is the reigning national sportsperson of the year for Zimbabwe, has had to navigate a minefield of injuries, intense competition, and pressure of international expectations since bursting onto the athletics scene. Both Makarau and Charamba were standout performers at the 2024 Paris Olympic Games, where they reached the final round, elevating Zimbabwe's profile on the world stage. So we are quite happy for Makarau, but also for Charamba, who are raising Zimbabwe's flag high in the in the athletics.
All right, Talent, and in the last of your stories, all is set for Travis Green's tour of Harare.
Travis Green is set to have a tour in Harare in July. The American multi-Grammy winner Travis Green is celebrated for his powerful blend of contemporary worship and urban gospel. He's known for songs such as Made a Way, You Waited, and Intentional. The singer's discography includes the record hit God Will Make a Way. So he's set to come to Zimbabwe, Harare, for a tour, and will also feature some local artists who also perform alongside him during the tour. The tour is scheduled for July 8th, and this is not the first time that Travis Green has made his way to Zimbabwe, Harare. This is the third time that will be to Zimbabwe. So gospel music lovers are well prepared for the tour, and expectations are high for local artists who are going to be performing alongside Travis Green.
Thank you very much, Talent, for delivering the Zimbabwe report.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
It's always good having you on Africa Good Morning. Let's have a look at the economic indicators. Let's get into the economic news. Over 1,500 delegates, including African leaders and top U.S. business executives, convened in Luanda for the 17th U.S. Africa Business Summit, hosted by the Angolan government and organized by the Corporate Council on Africa. Now, the summit, a key platform for strengthening U.S.-Africa economic ties, features heads of state from across the continent, including Algeria, Botswana, Ethiopia, Namibia, and more, alongside senior U.S. officials like Ambassador Troy Futrell and Masad Bolos. With a program centered on trade, investment, and commercial diplomacy, the summit emphasizes the U.S. administration's shift from aid-based engagement to a strategy focused on mutually beneficial economic partnerships. Florie Lisser, president of the Corporate Council on Africa, highlighted opportunities for U.S. companies to expand their footprint in African markets, particularly in energy, infrastructure, and innovation. The summit also comes amid broader changes in U.S.-Africa policy under President Trump, with renewed focus on strategic investment and a commercial diplomacy approach. Angola's President João Lourenço expressed optimism that the gathering would forge deeper bilateral ties and unlock long-term development gains for the continent through business collaboration, innovation, and sustainable growth. That's been our economic news story, and those have been our stories on Africa Good Morning. Thank you for joining us on DSTV 285, GoTV 25, oneup2.com, and NTV Africa on YouTube. Tomorrow we'll be swinging over to Botswana as we get the Botswana report from Rorisang Mohojwe. Of course, we'll still be highlighting the top stories from across the continent. But from me, Ashwin Berry, and the Africa Good Morning team, Sweraja Kanaka.